Once upon a time, in a small village nestled at the foot of towering mountains and surrounded by rolling green hills, there lived two siblings, Elara and Theo. They were kind-hearted children who loved to explore the world around them. Their village was filled with colorful cottages, and the air was always filled with the scent of fresh bread and the sounds of birds singing in the trees. The two children often played by the edge of a mysterious forest near their home, a forest that the villagers had always spoken of with a sense of awe and wonder. The villagers often told stories about a hidden grove deep within the forest, a magical place said to be filled with trees that bore fruits of every imaginable color and flavor. The villagers whispered that this grove, known as the Wonder Grove, had a special magic that could only be unlocked by those with pure hearts and a willingness to work hard and share. Elara and Theo had always listened with wide eyes when the village elders told tales of the Wonder Grove. They had heard of the glowing fruits, the sweet-scented flowers, and the way the trees seemed to hum with life. But no one had ever been able to find it. The stories always ended the same way, with the warning that only those who were kind, hard-working, and willing to share would ever be able to discover the grove's true magic. One sunny morning, after hearing the stories once again, Elara turned to her younger brother, Theo. "Do you think the Wonder Grove is real?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "I think it is," Theo said with a grin, his face lighting up with the idea. "Maybe we can find it ourselves. What if it's waiting for us?" The thought of discovering the Wonder Grove filled Elara and Theo with excitement. They packed a small basket with some bread, cheese, and fruit for their journey, kissed their parents goodbye, and set off through the village. The air was crisp, and the sunlight shone through the trees as they entered the forest. The path grew narrower as they ventured deeper into the woods. The trees stretched tall above them, their branches intertwined to create a canopy of green. The air was thick with the scent of moss and wildflowers. As they walked, they could hear the rustle of leaves and the songs of hidden birds. They passed sparkling streams and fields of colorful wildflowers, all the while hoping they were getting closer to their goal. As the sun began to sink low in the sky, they reached a clearing where the light seemed to shimmer, as if magic were in the very air. In the middle of the clearing stood a gate, an ancient wooden structure covered in ivy, with carvings of leaves and flowers etched into the wood. The gate looked like it had been there for centuries, waiting to be discovered. Without a word, Elara and Theo approached the gate. As they reached out to touch the vines, the gate creaked open on its own, revealing a sight that took their breath away. The Wonder Grove lay before them, more magnificent than they had ever imagined. The air shimmered with a soft golden light, and the ground was covered with vibrant flowers of every color. The trees towered above them, their branches heavy with fruits of every hue, golden grapes, silver apples, and even rainbow-colored berries. The fruits hung in clusters, their skins glowing as if touched by the light of the sun. The scent of the grove was sweet and intoxicating, filling their lungs with every breath they took. It was as if the very air was alive with magic. Suddenly, a soft voice, almost as if coming from the trees themselves, whispered, "Welcome, Elara and Theo. This grove is yours to tend. Its treasures will be yours to share. But remember, the more you give, the more it will grow." The children looked at each other, their hearts racing with excitement. They stepped into the grove and began to gather the fruit. filling their basket with the glowing produce. But as they worked, they began to notice that the grove was not as easy to care for as it appeared. Some of the trees were drooping as if thirsty, their leaves turning yellow and brittle. Weeds had begun to sprout between the flowers, and the pathways were cluttered with fallen branches and leaves. "This is more than we can handle," said Theo, his brow furrowed in worry as he looked around. "How will we ever take care of all this?" Elara took a deep breath and placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's a lot of work, but we can't leave it like this. We need to care for the grove. If we work hard and share what we have, I believe the magic of the grove will grow even stronger." Theo nodded slowly. "You're right. Let's do our best." And so, Elara and Theo returned to the Wonder Grove each day, working tirelessly to water the trees, pull the weeds, and clear the fallen leaves. They took turns carrying water from a nearby stream, carefully tending to the plants. As they worked, they could feel the magic of the grove growing stronger around them. The trees seemed to straighten, their leaves turning a lush green, and the flowers bloomed more brightly. The sun kissed the forest floor as Elara and Theo ventured deeper into the enchanted grove. With each passing day, their baskets swelled, laden with the bounty of the magical trees. The once empty vessels now groaned under the weight of their precious cargo. The children's eyes widened with wonder as they discovered new varieties of fruit, each more dazzling than the last. Grapes, as dark as midnight, hung in clusters, their surfaces shimmering like spilled stardust. Apples, as red as rubies, glowed with an inner light, their skins smooth as silk. And berries, a riot of color, seemed to dance and shimmer, inviting the children to pluck them from their vines. As the days turned into weeks, Elara and Theo found themselves overwhelmed by the sheer abundance of the grove. The baskets, once manageable, now felt like leaden weights, straining their young arms. They realized, with a pang of disappointment, that they could never hope to consume the fruits they had gathered. The thought of letting such exquisite treasures go to waste filled them with a sense of responsibility. They knew they had to find a way to share the bounty with others, to spread the joy and wonder of the enchanted grove. With renewed determination, Elara and Theo set out to explore the edges of the forest. They ventured beyond the familiar paths, their hearts pounding with anticipation. As they emerged from the trees, they were greeted by a sight that took their breath away. A small village nestled amidst rolling hills lay before them. Smoke curled from chimney pots, and the sounds of laughter and chatter filled the air. The children knew they had found the perfect place to share their treasure. With hesitant steps, they approached the village square. The villagers, drawn by the unusual sight of two children, laden with baskets overflowing with fruit, gathered around them. Elara and Theo, their hearts pounding with excitement and nervousness, explained their discovery. They spoke of the enchanted grove, of the trees that bore fruit of unimaginable beauty and taste. As they spoke, the villagers' eyes widened with disbelief, and then with hope. The villagers, touched by the generosity of Elara and Theo, were overwhelmed with gratitude. As the children arrived in the village with their baskets overflowing with the magical fruits, the villagers gathered around them, their eyes wide in disbelief. It was a rare gift, one that no one had expected, and the promise of such extraordinary bounty filled the air with excitement. The villagers had heard whispers of the Wonder Grove for years, but to actually hold its fruit in their hands was something beyond their wildest dreams. As Elara and Theo began handing out the fruit, the mood in the village shifted from surprise to joy. Laughter bubbled up as children ran from house to house, proudly showing off their baskets of glowing apples and shimmering grapes. The adults, too, were enchanted by the fruit's sweetness, savoring each bite with expressions of delight. Old neighbors who hadn't spoken in years shared stories while nibbling on the fruits, and families who had been too busy to gather for a long time found themselves talking and laughing together. The simple act of sharing something so beautiful, drawing them closer. Elara and Theo, in turn, were warmly welcomed by every villager. They were treated as heroes, not just for the fruits they had brought, but for the kindness they had shown in sharing the grove's magic with others. The children smiled brightly as they listened to the stories and songs of the village, and the elders shared tales of their own adventures. Each story seemed to weave its way through the village, and with each passing moment, the bonds between the villagers grew stronger. Elara and Theo were no longer just visitors. They were now an integral part of the community, their hearts touched by the unity they had inspired. As the evening wore on, the village square was transformed. Long tables were set up beneath the soft glow of lanterns, and every home contributed something to the feast. Some villagers brought freshly baked bread, while others brought cheese, stews, and cakes. The fruits from the Wonder Grove were spread across the tables in beautiful arrangements, their colors vibrant against the glow of the lanterns. The food, though simple, felt like a feast fit for royalty, for it was not just the abundance that mattered, but the love and care with which it was shared. The feast was filled with sounds of joy, children's laughter, the clink of plates, the murmur of conversation. The air was rich with the aroma of the food, but even more so with the warmth of community. There was no competition, no division. Everyone was together, sharing in the bounty of the land and the magic of the grove. The villagers spoke of their hopes and dreams for the future, and for the first time in a long while, there was a deep sense of belonging that wove through the crowd. Elara and Theo sat at the head of the table, beaming as they looked around, realizing how much their small act of sharing had brought this village together. As the stars began to twinkle in the sky above, the children played games in the village square, their laughter echoing through the night. The lanterns flickered in the evening breeze, casting a soft glow over the happy faces of the villagers. Even the oldest members of the community were caught up in the joy, their eyes shining with the wonder of the evening. For once, time seemed to slow down, as if the village was holding on to this moment of togetherness, knowing it was something truly special. Elara and Theo joined in the games, their hearts light, filled with a happiness they had never known before. The village's dogs wagged their tails, children ran through the streets, and even the usually quiet elders chuckled at the antics of the younger generation. It was a rare and magical night, and the community was more alive than ever. As the evening grew darker and the laughter grew softer, the fire in the center of the square crackled, sending sparks flying into the cool air. The night was alive with the warmth of human connection, and the groves of trees surrounding the village seemed to whisper in agreement, as if the land itself was smiling. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, Elara and Theo stood together at the edge of the village square, taking it all in. The laughter, the chatter, the joy of the villagers, all of it was a gift greater than anything they could have imagined. The grove had given them more than just fruit. It had brought this village together, made them all realize the power of kindness and sharing. It was as if the grove had unlocked something deep within each of them, a connection to the earth and to each other. Elara turned to Theo, her eyes shining. "This is better than I ever imagined," she said, her voice soft but filled with wonder. "We gave them the fruits of the grove, and they gave us something even more: belonging, friendship, and a place in their hearts." Theo smiled, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "I think the grove gave us more than we ever knew we needed," he said quietly. "We brought joy to the village, but it's the village that has given us something we can carry forever." With that, the siblings turned back to the square, joining the festivities once more. The village, bathed in the soft glow of the lanterns and the laughter of the people, was no longer just a place. They had found their home within it. They had discovered something that was far more valuable than any treasure: the joy of giving, the warmth of community, and the magic that lies in sharing. In that moment, Elara and Theo knew they had made the right choice, and they understood that sometimes the greatest reward is not in what you receive, but in what you give away. As the last of the night's festivities drew to a close, the villagers slowly began to return to their homes, their hearts full. The village square remained, bathed in the quiet glow of the lanterns, a silent testament to the joy and magic that had filled the air. And in the distance, the Wonder Grove stood tall, its trees shimmering softly under the moonlight, a reminder of the power of kindness, hard work, and the simple act of sharing. Elara and Theo, their hearts full of happiness, knew they would never forget the magic they had shared with the village, and the magic the village had given back to them. One afternoon, as they rested under the shade of a large tree, Elara spoke thoughtfully. "We have so much fruit. Maybe we should share it with the villagers. They've always been kind to us, and it's not fair for us to keep all this to ourselves." Theo hesitated, the thought of sharing the bounty feeling a little scary. But what if we give it all away? What if the grove stops growing, and we're left with nothing? Elara smiled and took his hand. "The grove gave us so much. I believe that if we share it with others, the grove will only grow stronger. The magic will grow with every act of kindness and generosity." Theo thought for a moment, then nodded. "You're right. Let's share it with everyone." The morning sun kissed the leaves of the Wonder Grove as Elara and Theo, their hearts filled with anticipation, set out to share their bounty. Their baskets, brimming with the vibrant fruits of the enchanted forest, seemed to glow with an inner light. The grapes, as dark as the night sky, shimmered with a celestial glow, while the apples, red as rubies, pulsed with a soft, ethereal radiance. The berries, a kaleidoscope of colors, seemed to dance and sway, their surfaces glistening like polished gemstones. With each step, the siblings felt a growing sense of purpose. They knew that they were carrying more than just fruit. They were carrying a piece of magic, a gift from the heart of the forest. As they approached the village, their excitement grew. The quaint houses, with their thatched roofs and smoke-curling chimneys, seemed to welcome them. With a mix of courage and shyness, Elara and Theo began their rounds. They knocked on each door, their voices barely audible as they offered the villagers a taste of the extraordinary. At first, the villagers eyed the strange, glowing fruits with suspicion. They had never seen anything like them before. But as they took a bite, their skepticism melted away. The sweet, juicy flavors, the burst of energy, and the lingering warmth that filled their bodies convinced them of the fruit's magical properties. Word spread quickly through the village. Soon, people were flocking to the siblings, eager to experience the wonder of the Wonder Grove. The once quiet village was transformed into a bustling marketplace, filled with the sounds of laughter, chatter, and the occasional gasp of surprise. The villagers, their faces lit with gratitude, thanked Elara and Theo for their generosity. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the air grew warmer and the village square became a bustling hub of activity. The villagers, initially hesitant, had quickly embraced the enchanted fruits that Elara and Theo had brought from the Wonder Grove. At first, they had marveled at the fruit's otherworldly glow, but soon their wonder turned to action. One by one, people began to share their harvests with neighbors they hadn't spoken to in years. The farmer with the largest field passed along his golden grapes to the seamstress, who in turn offered him freshly made scarves and blankets. The blacksmith, whose work was always demanding, shared his shimmering apples with the baker, and in exchange, the baker handed him a basket of warm, sweet loaf. The exchange of fruits and food was a small but powerful act, bridging old divides and creating a sense of togetherness. Elara and Theo stood back for a moment, watching the beautiful dance of generosity unfold before them. They saw the joy in the villagers' faces as they handed over their goods, offering not just fruits, but stories and laughter too. No one was concerned with who had the most or the least. Everyone was focused on the joy of sharing, and that made the act itself all the more powerful. The grove had not just brought physical sustenance to the village, but it had also revived a sense of camaraderie that had been missing for some time. The once divided village, where people had kept to themselves, was now united by the fruits of the Wonder Grove, creating a bond that had never been felt so strongly before. The siblings exchanged a quiet look, their hearts swelling with pride and fulfillment. They had expected the fruit to bring joy, but they had never imagined it would bring this kind of change. They had known, deep down, that the magic of the grove wasn't just in the fruit's glow or its sweetness. It was in the way it encouraged people to come together. It reminded them of the simple truth that when people share with each other, they create a ripple effect that can change lives, one small act at a time. Elara felt a sense of peace settle over her. She had always known the importance of kindness, but to see it blossom so vividly in front of her was something extraordinary. As the day wore on, the village square became a place of laughter and celebration. The children ran through the streets, their baskets overflowing with colorful fruits, while the adults engaged in conversations they hadn't had in years. Elara noticed an elderly couple who had once kept to themselves now sitting together, reminiscing about old times while sharing a platter of rainbow berries. Their faces were softened by the warmth of the day, their hands entwined in a way that spoke volumes about the healing power of connection. Elara realized that these simple exchanges were doing more than just bringing the village together. They were healing old wounds, restoring the spirit of unity that had been lost over time. In a corner of the square, a group of villagers who had previously been rivals were now sitting together, each with a piece of fruit in hand. They were laughing, not about their differences, but about the beauty of the evening and the unexpected magic of the grove. Theo could see the tension that once marked their interactions had melted away, replaced by a shared understanding that something much greater was at work. The grove had not only provided sustenance, but had shown them that when people come together with open hearts, there is nothing they cannot overcome. The villagers weren't just enjoying the bounty of the Wonder Grove, they were rediscovering the joy of simple acts of kindness. As the children ran up to their parents, their hands full of fruits they had gathered and shared with others, Elara and Theo realized that the children, too, were learning valuable lessons. They were seeing firsthand the joy that came from giving, from extending kindness without expectation of receiving anything in return. The parents were teaching their children that generosity didn't always have to be grand. Sometimes, it was as simple as sharing what you had with those around you. Elara looked at Theo, a smile spreading across her face. "We've done something good, haven't we?" she said softly. Theo nodded, his eyes bright with a mix of pride and wonder. "It's not just the fruits, Elara. It's the spirit behind it all. The grove gave us so much, but now it's giving the village something even more important: hope." Elara's heart filled with warmth. She realized that by sharing the fruits, they had also shared something much deeper. A sense of possibility, a belief in the power of community, and the hope that even the smallest gestures could change the world. As the afternoon drifted into evening, the village square glowed with the soft light of lanterns. The air was filled with the sound of music as an impromptu band of musicians began to play. The melodies drifted through the village, and soon, even those who had been quiet earlier were tapping their feet and clapping their hands in time with the music. There was a collective sense of joy that seemed to permeate the air. It wasn't just the fruit or the celebration. It was the shared experience of coming together as one. Elara and Theo were overwhelmed with emotion, realizing that they had helped create a moment of pure happiness that would be remembered for generations. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the village, Elara and Theo took a moment to stand at the edge of the square, watching the scene unfold before them. The once distant homes now felt closer, more connected. The village had transformed from a place of isolation into one of togetherness and warmth. It was as if the grove had unlocked not just the magic of the fruits, but the magic of human connection. And in that moment, they understood that the true gift of the Wonder Grove was not just its fruit, but its ability to bring out the best in people, to inspire them to give and share freely with one another. Theo turned to Elara, his voice filled with awe. "Do you think the grove knew what it was doing? That it wasn't just giving us fruit, but teaching us something bigger?" Elara smiled and nodded. Maybe it did. Maybe the grove knew that the real magic wasn't in what we took, but in what we gave away. Theo smiled, his heart full. "I think you're right, and I think this is just the beginning." Together, they watched as the village continued to celebrate the magic of the Wonder Grove. As the sun began its descent, casting long shadows across the land, Elara and Theo returned to the Wonder Grove, their hearts filled with a sense of accomplishment. They knew that they would return to the village many times more, bringing with them the gifts of the enchanted forest. And as they walked hand in hand, they couldn't help but smile, knowing that they had become a part of something truly magical. "Thank you, Elara and Theo," said one villager, taking a basket of apples. "These fruits are unlike anything we've ever seen before. They're so sweet and beautiful." As the villagers tasted the fruit, they felt a wave of kindness and gratitude wash over them. They began to realize that the beauty of the grove was not just in the fruits, but in the act of sharing. They offered to help Elara and Theo care for the grove. The next day, a group of villagers arrived at the Wonder Grove, ready to help. Together, they built fences to protect the trees, cleared away the weeds, and watered the plants. More and more villagers came each day, and soon everyone in the village was working together to care for the grove. With each passing day, the grove grew more beautiful. The trees reached even higher into the sky, their branches filled with more glowing fruits. The flowers bloomed in every color, filling the air with a sweet, magical scent. The once overgrown paths were now clear and welcoming. One evening, as the sun began to set, casting a warm, golden glow over the grove, the soft voice of the trees spoke again. Elara and Theo, your hard work and kindness have unlocked the true magic of this grove. It thrives because you cared for it, and it grows richer when its treasures are shared. From that day forward, the villagers continued to care for the Wonder Grove. They tended to the trees, harvested the fruit, and celebrated together the beauty that had come from their shared efforts. The Wonder Grove became a place where everyone could come to work, play, and share in the magic of the world around them. And so, in the glow of the Wonder Grove, Elara and Theo, along with the villagers, lived happily ever after, knowing that the magic of the grove would always grow stronger with every act of kindness, hard work, and generosity shared.